This week's parsha is Parshat Tazria Metzora, and we'll actually ask the same question we asked last year. Namely, these parshas deal with Tzaraat and how it settles in. And what's interesting is that the Torah seems to reverse the order in which it actually settles. That is to say, the way the Torah presents it is the Torah begins with a person himself, right, a person's body, and then onto a person's clothing, right, if Tzaraat hits his clothing, and then finally when Tzaraat settles on his house. And the reason why that's so noteworthy and so odd and puzzling is because really Tzaraat occurs in the exact opposite order. Really, it first settles onto a person's house, and then onto a person's clothing if he isn't paying attention. And then if he continues to refuse to pay attention, it'll finally settle onto him, his own skin, onto his body. And the Torah reverses it. Why? So we presented one answer to that last year. We'll present a different answer this year. This is also something I heard from Rav Bernstein. It's in his 2019 shiur. It's about in the middle, about 38 minutes in. And he quotes a book called Kehillat Yitzchak. It's a collection of Divrei Torah from Vilna and its environs, so Litvisha Divrei Torah. And he says like this: when you talk about a subject and you're deciding what to put first, you have different considerations. On the one hand, you can do it in chronological sequence, right? Whatever happens first, that's what you put first. But there are other considerations as well. That is to say, sometimes what you put first really emphasizes the point you're trying to make, and that's where the issue begins. That is to say, sometimes when a person needs to hear something, it doesn't work to kind of go about it in like a really sensitive, kind of indirect way. Sometimes you just need to go directly. You need to confront them head on. Why? Because people don't like to admit their faults. They don't like to take the blame, and they certainly don't like to hear criticism. That means that if we were to start with Tzaraat, and Tzaraat is affecting their house, then it might be that a person, who doesn't really like to recognize their shortcomings, will just say like, look, it's my house, it's my neighborhood, look at my neighbors, look at all the things that they're doing. They'll start detailing, giving you a whole list of all the things they're doing wrong, and all the things that are wrong with the neighborhood, and the city council, and it's about everybody else except for him. Or, of course, it could be his clothing. I was wearing the wrong thing. This person gave me the wrong clothes. He told me to wear a tie. I should have worn a different color tie. I should have worn a different colored shirt, a different type of suit, whatever it is. It's everything but him. And so, until you get to the person himself, he'll just evade. After all, it's a human specialty. People love to avoid criticism and to avoid seeing their own faults. And the unfortunate reality is that the more a person needs to hear criticism, the better they are at avoiding the criticism. So, and with this, Rav Bernstein actually quotes a story. He says that here, I'm assuming here this from Rav Shlomo Fisher, who tells a story of a person who was a wheat merchant in town, and everyone needs one. People need wheat. They need to live. And apparently this guy was charging astronomically high prices, way more than he needed. And people didn't really know what to do because people needed the wheat, but they were kind of stuck in a terrible situation and they weren't sure exactly how to deal with it. Now, the minhag was in those days that actually Magidim would kind of tour towns. They'd go from place to place and they'd give their drushes on Shabbos. So one such Magid came, and the people took him aside and they're like, listen, there's this terrible situation going on. There's a wheat merchant, and he's charging 10 times what he needs to charge. It's terrible. We can't afford it. We can't do without it. We don't know what to do. Please help us. Find a way to address the situation and just get through to him. So Magid listens to him, and he's like, listen, I'll take care of it. Don't worry. Okay, so Shabbos comes, people are at shul, and the Magid goes up to speak, and he goes up and he's like, listen, he starts talking about money. He's like, money, it's not the most important thing in life. It's not the highest value. It could really send people astray if there's too much focus on it. And he just starts speaking about it, and people just breathe a sigh of relief. Thankfully, the wheat merchant is there. He's listening. Fantastic. So after shul, the wheat merchant is actually the first person to go up to the rabbi, and he says, Rabbi, thank you so much for saying what you had to say. If there's one message that this town needs to hear, it's that message. The people here are obsessed with money. Every single day they come to me, and they keep trying to bargain with my prices, and I try to explain to them and get through to them, and nothing does work, and hopefully when they hear what you have to say, then it'll get through, it'll sink in. Sometimes the person who most needs to, the person who the words and the message is directed towards him, has this uncanny ability to just kind of push it right off. It's about everybody else. He's looking to his right, looking to his left, looking in front of him, looking in back of him, and it's about everybody else except for him. And therefore, says the Kilad Yitzchak, the reason why the Torah begins with man and not with the house, even though the Torah begins with the house, is because the Torah needs to confront man directly. A person needs to realize that it's about him. That's the thing that sets the tone. That's why the Torah is starting with man and not with the house. Because otherwise, he'll look to the right and look to the left, like, oh, it's about my house, it's about my clothes, nothing to do with me. He'll keep finding excuses instead of recognizing that there are things that need to be corrected. That is the message one of the messages of this week's Parsha. Shabbat Shalom, and stay safe and healthy.